welcome yet again to Snow Country Stories Japan. My name is Peter Carnell, a freelance tour guide and writer based in Nagano, and this is a podcast all about life and travel in Japan's legendary Yukiguni. It is now early autumn here in the Snow Country, and in case you can hear a slight buzz to this audio, it's the evening crickets whirring away outside in the cool autumn air. So if you're listening to this podcast in a quiet place, you might be able to hear that. I quite like it, and it kind of bookmarks the time of year of recording and conveys an atmosphere of where I am. So it's still there because I'm also too lazy to edit it out. Today's episode brings us back once again to Nagano Prefecture and the lovely enclave of Omachi. Located just to the south of the famous ski resorts of Hakuba Valley, Omachi is around 20 minutes drive from Hakuba Village or 60 minutes drive from Nagano City or Matsumoto City. Omachi lies in the valley below the Hida Mountains, that's the North Alps, Japan's highest mountain range, with multiple peaks over 3,000 meters, around 9,840 feet and above. Those mountains are subject to heavy snow each winter, with most of the ski resorts of Hakuba located on the eastern flanks of the range. Also worth mentioning that the famous Tateyama-Kurobe Alpine route is accessible from Omachi. The Alpine route ascends the North Alps to near the summit of what is considered one of Japan's most sacred mountains, Tateyama, at 3,003 meters. That's around 9,850 feet. Closed in winter due to the exceptionally heavy snow, the Alpine route opens to the public in mid-April and uses a series of mountain transports from the Omachi side of the range to ascend to the top station at 2,450 meters, around 8,040 feet. It is here that you'll find the famous snow walls of Tateyama, a road carved through the snow each spring, forming a snow corridor, with those walls reaching 18 meters, 60 feet in height. Once the snow recedes through June and July, hiking trails open up, offering visitors access to leisurely walks around the summit of Tateyama or intensive multi-day hikes into the alpine landscape of Chubu Sengaku National Park. The alpine route stays open until the end of November, when the snow of winter closes it yet again until the following year. I plan to do a travel guide for the Tateyama-Kurobe Alpine route in future, as I've guided there many times, and I've included a link to the official website on today's episode page of the Snow Country Stories Japan website. We spend today's episode in the valley below the mountains in Omachi and at the very fine Son of the Smith Hard Cider Brewery. Opened in 2020, Son of the Smith are in many ways forging a new era of cider in Japan, a country that doesn't have a strong cider tradition. Omachi, like many other areas within Nagano Prefecture, or the more northern snow country prefecture of Aomori, produces a lot of apples, so it's always surprised me that there is no real cider industry to speak of. For that reason, and the fact that I'm a big fan of the work that Son of the Smith are doing, I was very happy to sit down with head brewer Takuro. The title of this episode, Son of the Smith and the Science of Cider, will make total sense once you've heard what Ikeuchi-san has to say and how the brewery's work is redefining what is possible when it comes to cider. He's a busy man, so a big thank you to him for making time to speak with me. You can follow him on Instagram at hardcider.jp and the brewery at Son of the Smith Hard Cider. Their website is simply hardcider.jp. Make sure to check out the episode page on the Snow Country Stories Japan website. That's snowcountrystories.com for more information, images, and a map showing you where the brewery is. As always, thank you for listening, and if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate and review the pod, and share it with friends and family. The interview was recorded in the brewery's tap room, so the audio isn't perfect and you'll hear some machinery from time to time at work in the brewery. I think it all adds to the atmosphere. I hope you enjoy. So let's begin with the backstory of the brewery itself, the story of Son of the Smith. Ikeuchi-san, who's involved in the brewery and when was it established?
2015, so Ozawa and Miyajima, which is the Son of Smith, the CEO, they went to the Portland, Oregon. He drank the Reverend Nut Hard Cider, the Hopricot. The Hopricot is the apricot and hops. Then Ozawa-san and Miyajima-san, they shocked. Oh, this is so nice. Son of the Smith was born like this passion.
So they come from apple growing families here in Nagano.
Yes.
But they weren't cider makers, those families. So they made a decision to start making cider. Is that?
Yeah. They would like to making cider, but they have no idea because in Japan there is only cider. But when in the United States they making hop cider like a beer. There is no hop cider in Japan, so they would like to making hop cider in Japan.
But you say no hop cider, but my understanding is there's no real cider tradition in Japan.
Yes. Also, there is no traditional cider.
So why is that? Because Japan produces a lot of apples.
There is the only sweet variety of apple in Japan. No acid, no tannin. When you make the cider, when you make a wine, the sugar goes to alcohol. We need acid and tannin for the complexity, but in eating apple, there is no acid and tannin. So this is not good for the cider. That's why before there is no good cider in Japan.
So Ozawa-san and Miyajima-san actually set out with a goal to start brewing cider here in Nagano.
Yes.
And then they went to the United States.
So 2015.
Yep. And then the brewery opened in which year?
Open was 2020. Before, we were Phantom Cidery. Our first batch is 2016, which is the 100% Granny Smith fermentation by the champagne yeast, like a wine style. This is our first batch. Then we have to have a name. We thinking Son of the Smith is nice.
I need to ask about the name because the name Son of the Smith is a bit of a surprising one for a Japanese brewery. Where does the name come from?
The name comes from the son of a bitch. Because there is no good cider in Japan because the winery used to make a cider. Winery people making grapes, but they don't making apple. Then they buy apple from the farmer. Only Fuji eating apple. Fuji is not good to making cider. They have to making cider to keep the license.
That's my understanding, that in order to keep their license, they just have to produce a certain amount of alcohol.
Yes.
Any alcohol. So in the absence of being able to make wine,
Yes.
they buy up the apples to make what you, as you said, kind of very poor quality.
Poor quality.
Cider.
just keeping the license.
And hence the reaction, son of the bitch.
Yes.
But son of the bitch becomes son of the smith. The smith, I assume, is...
from Granny Smith, which
Right.
is our first batch.
You know, I wasn't expecting that as the answer, but that's a better answer than I could have imagined. Ikeuchi-san, what's your background? How did you become a cider brewer yourself?
I was studying the chemistry. I was doing the PhD, organic chemistry. I met Ozawa and Miyajima. They would like to make hard cider, but there is no one make hard cider. I found the article how to make cider and hard cider. Then I shared with Ozawa-san and Miyajima-san. They told me that, can we make cider like test batch? Then I say yes. Then we making together using my knowledge. I made first batch. I really like to know the more deep. I also doing the PhD, so I study a lot making cider and reading the cider article. Then
So at the time you were doing your PhD, you were already brewing yourself.
Yes. Then I realized that American hard cider culture comes from the UK. So I have to go to UK. So 2017, I was in the Somerset, UK, the Somerset Cider Brand Day. Then how to make cider. I would like to study how to make cider. Then when go to the cidery, press the cider apple. So I collect the juice, drank the juice. Then after goes to the tank, and after fermentation, I drank. Now I studying the taste of apple after fermentation. Is very important things. Because in Japan, there is no cider apple because of the only eating apple. But when you go to the gene bank, we could get the branch, the DNA from the university. Then now we have the UK variety, and there is the 15,000 variety.
15,000 varieties of
apple.
In the world.
Then we have to choose which one. So then that's why I have to know the taste. Then go to the UK. Then I collect which one is the good. Then now we making the good variety of cider apple in Japan because of my experiment. 2017.
May I ask, you finished your PhD and then you
dropped out the PhD.
You broke bad to become a cider brewer. A couple of times there you've used the word hard cider. Can you just explain to me what is the difference between hard cider and cider?
Depends on the country and technique. Apple variety. France, but using the keying technique, or also Spain, the Spanish Cider is using the chestnut oak barrel and acid. Also UK, Devon, Somerset, Wales, Hereford, and then different London area, the different variety. But normally the wild yeast and barrel aged or champagne yeast. There is the bitter sweet and the bitter sharp variety. Then in the Somerset, I think I was in the Somerset. I like Somerset cider.
Right, yeah, very famous for its cider. Yeah.
Then the hard cider is the American style, but there is different the central and the east coast and the west coast. Then we went the Oregon, so west coast. So east coast is like UK. They have an orchard, the pressing the apple. And the west coast is the there is the many apple orchard, but they making apple juice. Often they buy apple juice from the factory, like a blend A, blend B, blend C. Then they using the yeast and hops to try to different each other. This is a hard cider, especially West Coast. So depend on the style, country, the apple variety, the difference.
Yep. And so talk to me more about the ciders that you're making. What's different about Son of the Smith?
I making the heritage cider, the barrel laundering, also modern style, the eating apple, using Indian apple, and some botanical using with the modern style, like West Coast style. We using a sweet grass, the hops with the modern style. Also, we making fruit cider, plum haze. Now we making grape and cider, orange cider, strawberry cider.
So would you say, I mean, talking to you before the interview as well, it sounds like what you're creating here is a more complexity of flavor.
Yes. This year we try to making the fresh hop cider. Fresh hop is very difficult because the hops grown not enough. So we do the late harvest. We harvest the best one. Fresh hop beer in Japan. There is no good fresh hop beer because of the veg taste. But in United States, and some fresh hop cider, fresh hop beer is no veg taste. So I thinking about what are the difference between Japan and the United States. So I realized that this technique comes from the orchard. So we have a orchard. So we control the condition of the hops. Then we try to challenge the best condition of fruits and hops. Of course, apple. Then fresh hop cider is the best answer in the 2023.
So it's affected a lot. The cider that you're producing, from my understanding, it's affected a lot by the season, by the weather, and the apples that are produced. So, so this year, 2020, what kind of 2023, what kind of season has it been? It's been quite dry, not so much rain.
In April, we got the frost. Flower died, burned, no good condition in the apple. And also the few rain, apple acid goes down and apple fall down from the tree. No good condition, but I have a technique because of the I read the article a lot. So I using my knowledge for the cider. Last month, our first press in 2023. So we fermentation using lactic. So the lactic acid come from the yeast. Then so try to making the acid because of the this season the acid is low. Like we cover the apple condition by techniques. The last year was too much rain. So the sugar level goes down. We focus the apple condition, but each year. So that's why the recipe also everything different.
I notice, son of the Smith, that your range from year to year changes a lot. It's not just about style. You're responding to the different growing conditions and the different apples that are available. Is this different? I mean, do all cider breweries do that? I guess not.
No one do that. So the beer people and the winery people, they have a recipe. I don't have a recipe. I have to write a recipe, but 1 minute or 2 minutes. When I saw the apple, then I just come up with idea.
So do you like it? I mean, let's say, so every season comes with challenges.
Yes.
This year, not so much rain. Do you like that? Do you like having a challenge, create something new?
Yeah. I made 80 different kind of cider beer in my life. When I'm making different, I learn a lot. So my cider techniques using for the collaboration recently.
And which type of apples do you use across your range of ciders?
So normally we love the sharp variety, the acid. We love acid. So mainly the Granny Smith. Our original is the only 100% of Granny Smith. And Jonathan, also eating apple, Shinano sweet, or many sweet variety, including Fuji, we used. But
even though you said Fuji as a sweet apple,
yes,
isn't really well suited to producing complex cider.
So we have to use the many techniques for the eating apple.
I see that you have an apple sitting there now as we speak. So the apple in front of you, what have you got there?
This is our. So also we making new variety also because of there is many eating apple. So there is few cider apple in Japan. So we have to make the Japanese cider variety. So this is the unknown variety.
It's a prototype.
So prototype. Even I didn't eat.
Really?
I haven't eaten.
And I see. So, I also see a knife there. Are we going to try now? Oh wow!
でもカラーはグリーンカラー。
Yeah. So the apple itself is very small, smaller than a table apple. Color of the flesh is quite green. I see you smelling it. So
smell.
Is it surprising you in terms of the smell?
Green taste, then green smell.
Yep. Should we go?
can you feel the bitter taste behind the sugar?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was actually going to say it's quite edible, actually, more so than I was expecting from what you said, because there is a sweetness, and then the bitterness is behind it.
So we have to focus the after fermentation. There is no sugar, only tannin and acid come up. So, but the sugar masking the tannin and acid, I have to thinking about
it.
which. But also I have to analyze the pH and sugar level, and also we have to fermentation to remove the sugar, then making alcohol. Then today we have, I think, 30 different kind of variety. So I have to making the experiment one. Then which variety is good one or not, we have to correct this year.
That's your first time tasting that apple just now. So what's your first thoughts? You think it's well suited?
I already pressed 8 different kind of variety. So some variety is good tannin. So this is right tannin.
Oh, this is light. Yeah, yeah.
Similar with the eating apple, right?
Yeah, I said it was actually. I was expecting something a lot more tart or sharp from what you were saying. It's quite edible. I mean, it's clearly not intended to be eaten. I think it's a little bit too tart for that, but it's perfectly fine. Yeah. Yeah. I imagine with your work, very clearly the yeast that you're using is just as important as the apples. And my understanding is you use both commercial yeast and wild yeast.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Can you go into a little?
Yes. I using the wild yeast, and when we buy some yeast, but some yeast come from the wild yeast. So everything comes from the wild yeast. When I buy some yeast, I understand the variety and what type of yeast. So I could imagine easy, but the wild yeast we couldn't analyze. During the fermentation, we have to thinking about what kind of wild yeast in tank, but no one knows because each wild yeast is different. There is many yeast, uncountable yeast. So when the yeast expand, we got acid and aroma. So, but many wild yeast expand in the tank. So many complexity.
Yep.
But there's, if you use the only one yeast, one smell, non-complexity. But when I fermentation by wild yeast, so I could imagine like a Lego. If I have this Lego, I could build up. But in commercial yeast, I could imagine what kind of Lego we need. So I making the wild yeast from the apple in our orchard. I know what kind of Lego block we need.
Yeah.
Then I get the yeast Lego to build up the cider. This is my logic. It's very technical, so we analyze many times. Then thinking a lot.
Yeah.
Each tank is different. So I made 80 different kind of experiments. So normally the people making the recipe like 10 times or 20 times, making same condition, the same variety. I couldn't do that. Everything is different.
Well, one question actually I wanted to ask before I forget is, are you producing any aged cider, barrel aged cider, anything like this?
Barrel age is the different knowledge. Normally barrel-aged cider needs the oxygen. So oxygen helps the tannin molecule and tannin molecule
Join.
join together.
Right.
So make the polymer.
Hi. Okay.
Then we need tannin. UK variety have a tannin. So only the tannic cider apple tree using for the barrel-aged. So to control the molecule of tannin. Then after blending, and sometimes I use aging hop for the cider.
One thing I wanted to also ask you about is Son of the Smith. It seems to incorporate lots of different influences into its naming, the packaging of your ciders. And there seems to be influences from street culture, art, design, and music. So, for example, I was reading like one of your previous ciders, the Picker's Delight. Is that still available, or it's
Picker's Delight is the Sugar Hill Young. Rapper's Delight.
Rapper's Delight? Yes. So I read that it takes its name from the 1979 very famous song Rapper's Delight.
So これは、Rapper's Delight is beginning of the hip hop. So,
yeah, kind of considered one of the
like
seminal first
so,
hip hop tracks.
Picker's Delight for the beginning of cider. So drinking Picker's Delight, then they know the cider. This is the meaning comes from the Rapper's Delight, the Picker's Delight.
See, this is very interesting. I was also reading that your very nice cider, Nighthawks, which was the very first one that I tried with my wife. That takes its name from the Edward Hopper painting, the very famous Edward Hopper painting of the same name. But it was produced in 2020.
Yes.
And you're explaining to me there's another reason that you chose that name.
So 2020 is during the COVID, the beginning of COVID. So we have to drink like Edward Hopper's pictures.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about this picture.
Yeah. So very much that you I like this very much because there's as you were saying yourself, things are different now in 2023, thankfully. So the ciders this year and the naming, everything will be kind of different to reflect, as we were talking about, the kind of zeitgeist, the spirit of this year. It's really fantastic. Whose idea is that? Is that something which is everyone's idea together? Or
we have a designer, Woody, and Woody making everything design.
Labels.
The label, brand and design, logo.
Because I really like one of the things that really drew me. One of the first things that drew me to your ciders is I really like the labels.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, they're very clean, and you'd say almost like it's very simple, clean font on very little decoration, but usually no decoration, right? So it looks kind of almost scientific or academic, which I kind of think reflects your background.
We making cider. So after making cider, Woody drank our cider. Then he come up with some idea.
So final question, I guess, really most important question, Ikeuchi-san, is where can people try your ciders? So many of my listeners are in Japan and many are overseas. So where can they get them, and are they being exported
only
overseas?
In Japan. Especially Tokyo and Nagano and Nagoya, Osaka, Kyoto. Now 400 places and they selling our cider.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And we're speaking today in the brewery's tap room in Omachi. When is the tap room open if someone wants to drop in and have a drink?
And I working, so there's only few people working
yeah,
here.
Small staff, right?
Too busy, so you need to book.
You need to book. Okay. Because Omachi is just down the road from Hakuba. And Hakuba obviously is about to get very busy for the winter ski season. So anyone who's in Hakuba, if they want to come to the tap room...
sometimes we open
Sure.
Once a month.
And where is
So next week, the open the cidery.
Oh, okay.
Friday night.
Friday night. And so if somebody wants to check when it's open, they just check the website or Instagram or
Instagram.
best way. And I guess final question is, any plans to export overseas, or it's not something which is going to happen?
We would like to export, but
Complicated.
yes.
That's it for today's episode. I'd like to say another very big thank you to Ikeuchi-san for speaking with me. He's a busy man, so I appreciate him making time for me. Before I wrapped up my time with him, I asked if there's anything else he wanted to add, and he asked me to include the following.
The Reverend Nut Hard Cider is gonna close on this month. So very sad news. One of my favorite cider, Hopricot. If we didn't drink Hopricot, we don't exist in here.
Oh, really?
So
If you hadn't had it, Son of the Smith wouldn't be here.
So I making cider a lot. Some people say that our cider is good. Like we drank Hopricot, someone drank, then someone make something. This is the very important things. I try to making. That's why I try to making new stuff. So people who are unknown people. So some people, the beer maker, so try to check my technology, then making a beer also. Like me, I studying a lot from the nuts. So I have, but next month we couldn't drink anymore. So very sad news.
Given they are closing, I'm not sure how long the website will remain active, but I've included a link to Reverend Nat's Hard Cider on today's episode page. Son of the Smith's website is hardcider.jp, and you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Son of the Smith Hard Cider. You can also follow Ikeuchi-san on Instagram at hardcider.jp. For anyone in Japan or headed this way, make sure to get your hands on Son of the Smith. As Ikeuchi-san mentioned, it's now stocked at over 400 venues, and you'll certainly have no trouble finding it in Nagano and Hakuba, so skiers and snowboarders, look out for it. The podcast website is snowcountrystories.com. On the website, you'll find pages for each episode of the pod and information about my tours and services as a guide and writer. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and X by searching Snow Country Stories Japan. Likes, reviews, and shares, always appreciated. My name is Peter Carnell. This has been Snow Country Stories Japan. I'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with the next episode. Until then, it's bye for now.